Hello, this is the Bible in Fewer Words. We are Carol and Steve Wells. This is episode 261, the book of Luke, chapters 19 through 24. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Carol.
When I see the end of Luke, is Luke going to die today?
Well, Luke only has 24 chapters.
Okay, that's the information I need to know.
Yeah.
If there are 6 chapters, we better get rolling.
Yeah, that's right.
Chapter 19. When Jesus was in Jericho, a rich publican named Zacchaeus wanted to see him. Since he was a short man, he climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus above the crowd.
Yeah, he was short and he was also a tax collector. A publican is often a synonym for tax collector. Being a tax collector in the Gospels is supposed to be a bad thing. You're collecting taxes for the Romans. You're usually considered to be a corrupt person, a sinner, all of that.
Okay, did it also mean that he was maybe a little educated or could do math?
Maybe. Probably would be educated, or at least more so than most. But mostly he's just taking people's money.
Okay.
As Jesus passed the sycamore tree, he said, "Zacchaeus, come down from the tree, because I need to stay at your house." So Zacchaeus came down and went with Jesus to his house.
Some who saw it said, "Jesus is going to stay at a sinner's house." But Zacchaeus said to Jesus, "I give half my possessions to the poor, and if I take anything unfairly from someone, I give 4 times as much back."
Jesus said to him, "Well, today you and your family have been saved, because you are a son of Abraham, and the Son of Man came to find lost people."
What a lucky guy.
Yeah.
Does that mean he could do whatever he wants today to the end of his life?
I don't know. I don't know what it means. I think this is the first saved person in the Bible.
Oh. Could be the only saved person.
He and his family, I guess. He said your house, you and your house. Usually that means family.
Mm-hmm. So a man can save his whole household from going to hell.
Yeah, by inviting Jesus over, I guess, to stay with him, right?
Uh-huh.
So did you notice that there's something here that looks kind of strange?
Yes, we're missing a chapter and a whole bunch of verses at the beginning of that chapter. What's happening there that we're not going to review?
We're missing 2 chapters. Chapters 20 and 21, which is when Jesus arrives in Jerusalem and does some preaching and tells about the end of the world. Now we're getting to chapter 22, where he has the Last Supper. And we've heard about that before.
Yes, we have.
And that's where this begins.
Okay. So Jesus said to the apostles, "When I sent you out without a purse, bag, or sandals, did you need anything?" And they said, "Nothing."
Jesus said, "Well, now take a purse and a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your clothes to buy one."
And they said, "We have 2 swords." And Jesus said, "That is enough."
Yeah.
What are they going to need a sword for?
Well, I don't know what he has in mind here, but he's going to be arrested. And that's coming up.
Yes, okay. So chapter 23.
Jesus prays in the Garden of Gethsemane after their supper.
Mm-hmm.
Judas comes.
With the bad guys.
They're the bad guys, and he's arrested.
Yeah.
And then they take him to Caiaphas, the chief priest, and the Sanhedrin.
They say we don't want to deal with him.
They do, but then they decide they have to send him to Pilate because they can't put somebody to death. And that's where we are now.
Okay.
When Pilate heard that Jesus was a Galilean, he sent him to Herod, who was in Jerusalem at the time.
Herod was glad to see Jesus, since he'd heard so much about him.
He asked him many things, but Jesus didn't answer. After Herod's soldiers mocked him and put a gorgeous robe on him, he sent him back to Pilate.
They said that gorgeous robe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Herod didn't really know what to do with him. So
No.
he's just sending him back to Pilate. Now, this trial before Herod, that's only found in Luke. None of the other Gospels have it, so that's why we have it here.
Okay. As they led Jesus away to be crucified, there were many people who followed Jesus, including women who wept for him.
Jesus turned to them and said, "Don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and your children. Someday people will say, 'Blessed are women who can't have children, and breasts that can't be sucked.'"
They'll say to the mountains, "Fall on us," and to the hills, "Cover us." They're talking to landmarks.
Yeah. Jesus was crucified at a place called Calvary between two criminals.
Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing."
One of the criminals that was crucified with Jesus said to him, "If you're Christ, save yourself and us."
But the other criminal rebuked and said, "We're getting what we deserve, but this man did nothing wrong." Then he said to Jesus, "Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom."
Jesus said to him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." So we have somebody else that's saved.
Yeah, two saved people.
Yeah.
Chapter 24. On the first day of the week, early in the morning, some women came to the sepulchre with spices. When they arrived, they found the stone rolled away, and Jesus' body was missing.
They saw two men standing by them in shining garments.
The women bowed their faces to the ground, and the two men said to them, "He's not here, but he is risen."
Then they left the sepulchre and told the 11 and all the rest.
Among the women who went to the tomb were Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Mary, the mother of James.
But those who they told didn't believe them. Then Peter ran to the sepulchre, saw the linen clothes, and departed, not knowing what to think.
So you just saw the clothes there in a pile on the ground?
I think they were neatly folded.
Okay. So Jesus walked away naked?
Yeah. Why didn't he take his clothes with him?
We made a big deal about that guy who just, somebody pulled his clothes and he ran away naked. You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is strange, yeah.
Verse 13. That same day, two others went to a village named Emmaus, which was about 60 furlongs from Jerusalem.
You know what a furlong is, right?
No.
Not into horse racing? It's 200 yards. So this would be about 12 miles, I think.
Okay. While they were walking, Jesus joined them, but they didn't recognize him.
Jesus said to them, "Why are you so sad?" One of them, whose name was Cleopas, said, "Are you a stranger around here? Haven't you heard what's happened recently?"
Jesus said, "What things?"
They said, "The prophet Jesus of Nazareth was crucified a few days ago. Some women in our group went to the sepulchre and found that his body was missing. They also saw some angels who said he was alive."
Some others went to the sepulchre and didn't see the body either.
Jesus said, "You fools, don't you believe the prophets? Don't you know Christ must have suffered these things to enter his glory?"
And he explained everything in the scriptures that concerned himself.
As they entered the village, he prepared to leave them. But they talked him out of it, saying, "It's getting late. Stay with us." So he did.
As they were eating dinner, he took the bread, blessed it, and gave it to them. And then they recognized him, and he vanished out of their sight.
They said to each other, "Didn't our hearts burn within us when he talked about the scriptures?"
Then they returned to Jerusalem and found the 11 who were gathered together.
They said, "The Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon."
What? What's going on here?
Yeah, I thought Simon just saw the clothes.
Neatly
And he was
folded.
missing.
Verse 35. And the others told them how they recognized Jesus in the breaking of the bread.
Yeah, maybe because they were there at the Last Supper.
You think so?
These aren't the apostles.
No.
This is Cleopas, but that's not one of the apostles, so we don't know, but they recognized him in the breaking of the bread.
Yeah. Verse 36. Then, while they were speaking, Jesus came and stood in the middle of them and said, "Peace be with you."
And they were all afraid, thinking they'd seen a ghost.
Jesus said, "Why are you afraid? Look at my hands and feet. Touch me and see. A spirit doesn't have flesh and bones like I do."
Then he showed them his hands and feet. As they were still wondering and too happy to believe, he said, "Do you have something to eat?"
They fed him a piece of boiled fish and a honeycomb. I wonder if he complained about that. Hey, don't you have something better to eat? And he ate it in front of them.
Jesus went with them as far as Bethany, and then he lifted up his hands and blessed them and was carried up to heaven.
How does somebody get carried up to heaven?
I don't know.
There's got to be somebody else there.
Let's see if that's the way it's phrased here at the end. And it came to pass, while he blessed them, he parted from them and carried up into heaven.
Oh.
Don't we need a he in there?
Yes,
And he was
carried up into heaven.
But I don't think it has that. Anyway, that's how the Gospel of Luke ends. It's interesting that they're just not recognizing him.
Yeah,
right?
A whole bunch of people are not recognizing him.
Yeah, the guys on the road to Emmaus didn't recognize him.
2 guys, and
then when he comes and asks
in a big
them,
white robe.
Yeah, they think he's a ghost. How could we have any confidence that any of these people actually saw Jesus when they couldn't recognize him, when they'd been around him all this time?
Mm-hmm.
I have trouble recognizing people sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I do too. I recognize them, I just can't remember their name.
Yeah, people that I even halfway know. So I can see how they forget his name. Oh, I know you. Yeah, you're that guy, yeah. But you would think they'd recognize him.
Yes.
And if they don't recognize him, then how are we to believe that they actually saw him?
Yeah.
'Cause it could have been anybody. They say, oh, yeah, I bet that's Jesus.
Well, and I wonder if Luke, or whoever wrote this gospel, just said, you know what, we got to put in there that they did recognize him and that they figured out who he was. Otherwise, it would be very weird, a bunch of people not recognizing Jesus.
Oh, I don't know. I have a hard time understanding how stories like this would have been told. Mm-hmm. Because they seem a little troubling, like they don't quite make sense. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times I think stories
are that way.
Mythology is that way. There's, the stories, I don't believe all the stories about Paul Bunyan or about Robin Hood, right?
Yeah.
Some of those things might not even have happened.
Okay. Well, that's the end of our episode for today.
That's the end of Luke.
That's great.
We've got 3 out of the 4 Gospels done.
And John is completely different, I hear.
The way we do John is going to be different than the way that we've done the other Gospels. I guess it'd be most like Mark, because with Mark, we had a fresh start, right?
Mm-hmm. So we will wrap up this episode today, figure out what the heck we're doing with John, and then get back to you with our next episode.
Yeah, our next episode is going to be the Gospel of John.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, listeners, thanks for staying with us. And Steve, thanks for all your hard work.
Sure.
Bye-bye.